Hi. Today we're going to be talking about challenges in classroom management. There are a variety of challenges you can run into, such as student attendance, student excuses on late assignments, but today we're specifically going to focus on student resistance. So if you see this image, it's probably not the kind of student resistance you have in your class. No one is probably revolting and getting up and walking out of the classroom. Student resistance, when you think about resistant students, think about maybe a class that you had prepared and you thought the lecture was going to be particularly interesting. You made sure there were some active learning strategies, and you encountered resistant students when you went to teach the class. Think about maybe a time that happened to you and what those students were like. In my experience, one of my first teaching assignments was in Japan, and I was responsible for teaching English to a classroom of college students, and they had me teaching college science in English. Students were very resistant to speak in English. It was a large class, and they were very nervous. And so I thought I had prepared this great lecture, but really they were kind of not engaged, disengaged, unmotivated, just didn't seem to want to be there, weren't really participating in the class very well. So even if it's not their second language, often we have students that just are resistant. They don't want to be there, a little bit unmotivated and unwilling to engage in the class. And this is probably a little bit more what your students look like. They're a little bit bored, perhaps. So what are some things you can do to decrease that resistance? Another thing is to just be comfortable. I don't know if there are any How I Met Your Mother fans in here, but let's play this little clip. I don't think Ted Mosby was very comfortable in this role, but let's see. Looks like it's loading. So just be yourself, be comfortable. If you have a sense of humor, let that shine through. Don't be too nervous. I guess the best thing to remember is you are the facilitator of discussion, and you typically have learned more about the topic than the students have so far. So you're the expert, and you can facilitate those discussions. So it should be a little bit more comfortable knowing those things. Let's see if there are any other ways to decrease the social resistance or the social distance. And when we talk about social distance, we mean that you as a professor are in a higher power position than the students. So that leads to a little bit of um, discomfort with engaging. So two basic things are just to smile and make eye contact. Like I said before, human communication, just basic tenets of human communication goes a long way. And sometimes we forget when we're uncomfortable in front of a classroom of students that learning their names, smiling, and making eye contact actually goes a long way to make students feel more comfortable participating in class and really talking to you. So how do you decrease the social distance in an online course? This is a little bit trickier, right? Because those tips of smiling and making eye contact are a little bit lost in the online format. Over here, I've posted a TED Talk. I'm not going to play it now because it's a little bit longer, but I will send this PowerPoint out. And if you want to watch it, you are welcome to. This is Sherry Turkle, and she's talking about how people are more and more connected in an online format these days, but still feel alone. So just having an online course and saying, oh, students are used to being online won't go very far. But there are some things you can do to kind of connect to students in online courses. Again, kind of the same basic tenets of human communication. Be friendly, inviting, have a friendly tone of voice when you're having a meet session or you're doing office hours, and definitely hold office hours. If you want to learn a little bit more, you can click over there on the right-hand side. There are a lot of TED Talks on communication, and then I've linked to two articles as well, How to Win Friends and Influence People in the Digital Age. And on one I thought was particularly interesting was How to Win Friends and Influence Students, Applying Networking Principles to the Teacher-Student Relationship. This article really covers a lot about those basics of how to win friends and influence people from Dale Carnegie, but more adapted to the academic world. So we're talking about things like keeping in touch with students, knowing students' strengths, and playing to them. So if you have a student that is active in the profession already, so if they're, let's say you're teaching a master's in library information science course and you have a director of a library there with you, you do want to draw on that experience to kind of connect what they're learning to their professional life and just kind of have them as an expert and a resource for their classmates. So, like I said before, holding office hours is actually a big part of it, especially in the online format. This gives you an opportunity to talk one on one with students, learn a little bit more about the students, kind of understand their questions. Sometimes in the online format, students are actually struggling a lot kind of behind the scenes, and you don't really get to see the blank stares if they would be in the classroom with you. So it is important to hold office hours and really encourage your students to come to them. You might, I don't know if this is possible or not, but you can possibly offer extra credit if they attend so many office hours, or have prompts that they can kind of read off of questions that you might ask during office hours. Some students haven't really gone to college before and they're a little bit unfamiliar with the concept of, oh, what do I go in there and ask them, and what do I ask the SLC, and what do I ask the library, and is it okay if I ask those type of questions to my professor? So definitely hold office hours. Another thing to remember is that the connection with your students doesn't necessarily end at graduation. So hopefully you're learning their names, you are making eye contact, you're smiling, you have a warm tone of voice, you've learned specific things about your students' jobs and personal lives that they've shared with you, and then you've drawn on those experiences. But don't forget those experiences when students graduate. You can always have them come back and as a guest speaker to your class. Perhaps they're in a big industry now that's popular and has a lot to do with what you're teaching, and they can come in and talk about the concepts that they use on an everyday basis in their job to your class. They can attend alumni networking functions, and also don't forget that oftentimes students will want you to write a letter of recommendation for them, and I'm sure you've experienced it before, where a student who was kind of quiet in your class and you didn't know too much about wanted you to write a letter of recommendation. And that's also why it serves you well to just kind of learn these things about your students so that those letters of recommendation go a lot more smoothly. So here are the references that we used for this presentation. The first one is how to win friends and influence students. The other one, how to win friends and influence people. And the third one was strategies for preventing student resistance from faculty focus. So please feel free to find those resources and read further, as well as the TED Talks and the links to those articles on a previous slide. Thank you.